Right on, writers, and welcome first-time viewers to the Books by Adrian author platform. I am your host, Adrian Santiago. I write the Mythic series. This right here, that's me. I wrote that. I made it. It comes out April 30th. Check it out. It's going to be awesome. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Dulcie's legacy today with its author, Margaret Pinard. I'm very, very excited to have her on. And we're going to go ahead and bring out my panel of guests first. And then Miss Pinard will join us after that. So please help me to welcome the always running Ben Pick.
Hello, hello.
Say hi to the people. Tell them who you are.
Yeah, I am Ben Pick. And as Adrian mentioned, I am running to write. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I post questionable writing advice through Running Metaphors. And yeah, this past week, it was all about bad tropes for dystopian stories. And coming up, I am going to be swapping in a live episode this Monday night. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be all about my book 2 retrospective.
Very, very cool. And my co-hostess with the mostest, Shannon, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Introduce yourself to the people.
Okay. I'm Shannon, writing under the pen name of SC Houston. I have a YouTube channel under the name of SC Houston. We are streaming this. It was all set up on Adrian's channel, but we're able to now stream it to our channel. So I am streaming this to my channel for those who are over there. You can see me and you can see all of us there. So that's really cool. And I'm author of the Clash of Goddesses series. I have a YouTube channel underneath the name of SC Houston. I'm doing sprints every day in April for Camp Nano. I'm also one half of the AuthorTube Writing Conference with our guest author of the day. And we will be having a video come out this Friday. I've been meaning to get it up and I haven't had a chance to get it up yet, but we're going to have a video come out, a live come out on Friday. Look forward to that. And 1/3 is Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Ben Pick, who you just was introduced to, and Morgan Lee. We just did an off-season episode recording on Sunday, and that's going to come out April 15th, where we're talking about Chris Fox's book, 5,000 Words Per Hour.
One of these days, you're going to have to tell me how you keep all of that in your head. Now, let's welcome the awesome author of this awesome book that we all read together, Miss Margaret Pinard. Hello and welcome.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
Howdy. Please tell the folks at home who you are, where you're from, what you got going on these days.
Hey, everybody. My name is Margaret Pinard, like Captain Jean-Luc Picard, for anyone who is wondering how to pronounce it. I am the author of 5 books, novels, and a short story collection. So pleased to have this book club reading Dulcie's Legacy. Very cool. I'm a historical fiction and fantasy author and an eclectic reader. And on my YouTube channel, which is my primary home, you will find me talking about all sorts of books, especially nonfiction, especially backlist, especially Scottish history, and mystery and romance. That's kind of where I like to land for the comfort reads. So if you like that, feel free to subscribe and pick up a book like these lovely people have. Adrian's muted.
See, you know what's ironic is that I just said fantastic. I love when I'm surrounded by professionals, and I was muted because I'm not one. So there you go. All right. So welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you know, we read your book recently and loved every minute of it. We had a great time talking about it on the show. This was your second book, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, so before we say hi to the chat, why don't you tell us a little bit about this being your second book, where the idea came from, why you went from your first project to this one. Give us a little bit of a roundabout explanation on the book.
Sure. So my first book was a historical mystery, sort of a whodunit, and I haven't been back to that genre. I was sort of like trying to find where my home was. And the second one, I'd just been on a road trip to Nova Scotia, and the place was beautiful. And what really stood out to me was the fact that there were 3 very specific and distinct ethnic communities that had settled in that area. There were Acadians who eventually migrated south to become Cajuns in Louisiana because they were expelled. There were the Scots settlers who came around in the 18th and 19th century. And there were the indigenous folks who were there all along, and they're called the Mi'kmaq Indians, in case anyone wondered how to pronounce that. And
we did.
It sort of gave me this ragtime feel of different populations circling each other and casing each other and trying to get along or not, as the case may be. And so that's what inspired the sort of conflict and moving action in this story, Dulcie's Legacy.
Right on. Very cool. A nice little melting pot of a lot of different things going on there. I like it. All right. Well, let's take a sec to say hi to the chat because Richard is yelling at me like, he hasn't gotten his attention yet. So because of that, we're going to start with RC Scott. Yay. What's up, dude? How are you? Lauren is also here. Lauren Adele, welcome. And third through the door, bright and early, Shannon, thank you very much for hyping the new book. It's available for pre-order at some places. Amazon is still pending. It's coming soon. Let's get mythical, except today we're getting Dulcie's Legacy.
Except I like to ask Richard if this is said in a tuneful manner, as in what it suggests to me. Let's get mythical. Anyone has done that yet?
Victoria Wren, welcome. Hello. Will Adrian's Wi-Fi crap out on us? Only time will tell. But thank you for reminding me that it is quiet in here. Let's get some music going. Because
nice. There are those drums.
Like
we're in Jumanji.
Yeah, man. Exactly. That's exactly it.
Oh no, FAM's trying to do all the things.
AF Stewart, welcome. Hello, cool gamers here. Thank you for stopping by. Now, for everybody in the chat, please go ahead and label your questions for Miss Margaret Pinard with a big Q so that I can find them and star them in here. Beth Ann, welcome. Hello. Thank you for stopping by. Richard hops on anyone who writes in a spreadsheet. Emma, welcome, Emma. Good to see you. So many people today. This is awesome. Very exciting. Okay, I think that's everybody.
They're coming in from all of our channels.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. That being said, with so many different communities, so to speak, all watching at the same time. Hi, again, I'm Adrian. Subscribe. Books by Adrian. YouTube. Enjoy. All right. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Shannon, if you would be so kind as to do the honors with the first official question for Miss Margaret Pinard.
Okay. I want to know about Mr. McKenna. So I had a theory that he wasn't real. I feel like by the end he probably was. I don't think your thoughts or your intention was to not make him real, but I don't know. I just want to know what was your intention with him, since he never appeared at any other scene except for with Dulcie.
He was real in my head, but I really liked the backstory that you guys had about him being a time traveler. Spoiler alert. So that was actually very well worked out and could possibly be, something to pick up in a future novel.
That's hilarious that the author has accepted our headcanon as her own now.
It's better. It's been 9 years, folks.
And so retroactively, it became a spoiler. Like it wasn't before, but now it is. That's fantastic. Now, you just said in a possible future book, and we know that this is a standalone, but we also know that all three of us were like, why isn't this a series? Where's part 2? So, do you have news?
No, but because you said
kick her out.
This is the first young adult novel that you'd read. I think I at that time was under the impression that young adult was I don't know, it sort of runs against the tide of the time. Like it was very popular, and I run screaming from things that are popular, right? I'm allergic to hype, so I didn't want to earn money, apparently. I ran the other direction to historical fiction and serious literature, which I was going to attempt to try for my third book. And so that's why I didn't go back to this as a sequel, because I started the Remnants trilogy, and that was like a lot of research effort and travel effort. And so I just sort of went in a different direction, and my head sort of spun in terms of like, this is, I don't know, more important, and, you know, can't make that money. That would be terrible.
God forbid.
Tongue formally in cheek here. Would have been a good idea.
Ben, how about you, buddy? What do you have to start us off with questions for Miss Margaret?
I was about to comment on the can't make that money in the chat, but I'll save that for a moment later. My question has to do with the time travel. I'm trying to figure out the best way of wording this, because I had it right in my head like an hour ago, and then everything just seeped right out as we're on the on the air. But did you know how you wanted to do the time travel from the start, or how did that sort of evolve into the rules that were created for the story?
So when I first wrote the story, there was time travel, and my editor told me that the past section was way more interesting than the present section. You had to redo this whole thing. And I was like, oh, I guess that's because I'm more interested in the history than the young adult storyline. And so I did a lot of tinkering. I think the mechanism, like the music and the voluntary / involuntary nature of it, was the same from the beginning. But the objects was definitely something same from the beginning as well. So the weight had to change because of the, you know, balance, but the mechanism, I think, pretty much stayed the same. I don't think she found a problem with that. So.
Now, you said that you had done a lot of tinkering and whatnot. You also mentioned earlier that your first book was more of a whodunit, and that you haven't really returned to that genre since. But I would argue that there's a bit of a whodunit element in here. And in addition to that, you've got the YA stuff, you've got the historical stuff, you have the fantasy, time travel-y, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. So talk to me a little bit about this genre blender that you have going on here, because that's what I love. That's what my book is. And I'm very, very much interested in where people who mix genres together are coming from for that.
So if you've ever heard of Barbara Sher, she's like a self-help person from the 70s, 80s, 90s. She had a 90s book that I believe was called Refuse to Choose. And that is like something that needs to be tattooed across my forehead, because in college, in careers, in writing, that has been my motto, is like, I want to do all the things, don't make me choose. So that's probably how this book ended up as it is, which is like all of my favorite genres all in one. So like I said, first and second book sort of naturally developing out of being a reader, and like the genres that I loved reading, and trying to recreate that with like a little point in time that I used as a starting point, and then like gradually filling it out from there. So yeah, romance, mystery, time travel, fantasy, portal fantasy, I guess. Like you can nitpick with like the actual titles or labels, but I like things that have all those elements. I don't know if it lends itself to finding a target audience any better when you have all the things crammed in. But if it's generally good as a story, I think that also like gives something to everyone who reads it. So in my view, I think that's a good point, a point in its favor. That's got a little bit of all those things. It's not fitting in just one of those genres, expectation-wise.
Right on. Shannon, another question?
Yeah, so I kind of missed the very, very beginning when you were talking about your background of getting to writing this book, because I was still oohing that this was on my channel too. So if I think I heard you had visited this area before you wrote the book, or you knew of it. Okay, so did they have stories like this, like the one you have? Is there something that inspired you from there? Like, did you hear something similar to this?
Like in terms of a legendary wrong done?
Like a cultural story or something?
Whatever part it could have been, whether it was a wrong or just, you know, the population being moved and having issues with that, or whatever.
People are like wigging out about the guest destination.
Like, why? Just watch it on one. It's fine. Like,
yeah, just watch it on one. It's okay. Nathan, don't let your brain fracture. It's okay.
Yeah, your Wi-Fi is gonna crash. Like, take it easy.
Right.
Some of us have actual Wi-Fi's, Adrian.
Yeah, right. Ouch.
So I think in my historical fiction and even the historical fantasy in fabled passages, there's an element in my writing that is always about righting wrongs and trying to find justice in really hard situations that have happened mostly in the past. And so when I go to any location and I'm learning about the history of a group, normally they're talking about, well, if it's indigenous, it's genocide, and it's, the way that the government moved in, and sorry, Her Majesty's government under Victoria took over Canada and decided that like the veil of whiteness needed to spread across the continent. And, that wasn't perhaps the best thing for the people already living there, Richard. So, when I look into that history and I try to find the people who were there first, the people who moved in, like everyone has a backstory and everyone has a viewpoint. And, from one point, it's a good thing. From one point of view, I mean, it's a good thing that people moved to Canada because they were suffering and dying in Scotland. From another viewpoint, the indigenous folks that were already there, who were fishing, who were being moved off their land and pushed to a place of land that was, confined, like it was not a good thing that those people moved in. So sort of getting people acquainted that there are more than just like the waspy factions in an area is some sort of education. And then getting people to sympathize with other points of view is another sort of education that I've really embraced in terms of a fiction writer.
I spent a lot of years of my youth in Buffalo, New York, and that general area up there, Erie County, and that whole section. There's a very very strong indigenous community there, and a lot of history there, especially from across the falls from Canada and that whole kind of bleed over area there. So I didn't mention it during the episodes, but a lot of this stuff like was taking me back to being in my like old neighborhood when I was a kid. Like you would see a lot of this, and being from a Hispanic community and also going to like a white school, like it was very interesting to see all these very different cultures all in the same area and yet very kind of separate from each other. It's kind of interesting how that happens.
Beth Ann has to step away.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth Ann.
Thanks for coming by.
And what is interesting to me, and Richard said don't call him out, but like I'm interested in the British Empire because
Always call Richard out.
They have a large footprint in history, right? And so the fact that you've got minority communities throughout history in different areas, in different locations, fighting against each other rather than fighting against the oppressor in many cases is just like fascinating to me. The same thing's happening now in America. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, for sure.
I have to say that her book down there looks like it's in Ben's studio.
It does.
There's just a book floating in space around here. It's just good.
Yeah. Totally unintentional, but that'll work. Yeah.
I do have the digital copy of it, so it's nice to seem like I have the physical copy right here.
Yeah. Just like you have to hold your hand
up
behind
pages.
it.
Yeah. How about your?
Oh, go ahead. No, please.
I was going to say, how about your characters? Are they? What's the good way of saying this? Are they based off people in your life? Are they, is there a bit of you put into Dulcie as like a high schooler? Is this an insight to a younger Margaret? Or do you see yourself as the adults in Dulcie's life trying to rein in, maybe a more rambunctious teenager?
So this is a good question for looking back, because I think as we all put out these novels and then have some space, some psychic distance to like look back on what we wrote and produced, we go, oh, that's what I was working through at that point in my life, right? So when I looked back, someone pointed out to me like, oh, it's this young girl who's confronted with craziness and not knowing what to do in her life and decision point. And yeah, so there's obviously some of me in many of the characters. I think that was Deanna Gabaldon who said that, who I love her quote. She's like, yes, there's some of me in Claire, but also me in Jamie, and also me in the bad guy, the villain, the sadistic dude. So it's like, they're all out of your head. They're all out of
this is how you got away with murder is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, right.
She did fix it. She went back in time and fixed it.
Media.
Right.
Yeah.
We're also influenced by media, you know, like all the TV shows, the time travel, like the tropes that you learn, those have like filtered through too. And, you know, because it's a second novel, I don't think it's as examined, you know, as I might have done in a later case. So, yeah.
I had a question about the whole
Richard.
the whole drumming thing and going into like that state for Dulcie. How the time travel kind of ties into this whole like kind of meditative thing that she's doing. I've seen this type of thing depicted many times before in different ways. You know, most recently in Soul from Pixar, they talk about like going into the like the muse and just kind of getting lost in that you know, pure inspiration area. And as a writer, as an artist of some kind, like I'm sure that each of us have experienced something similar in one way or another. Where did your interpretation of this come from? Are you drawing from anything in particular? Was it research? Where did that whole angle come from for you?
I think, and I'm gonna get his name pronounced wrong, but I think it's the concept of flow from Mihai Mihai. It's a Czechoslovakian name, and I'm part Czechoslovakian, so you think I'd know how to say it, but I don't. His psychological concept of flow, which is when you don't have an editor voice. It's what it really sort of means to me. It boils down to you're in a sort of a trance because you're not paying attention to external things and you're creating, right? So that's like the flow state that he describes. And that's just what I was sort of layering on to people who are musicians. I've never gotten that way as a musician because I've never gotten good enough. But things like walking or reading or dancing, I've definitely experienced that. So I was just sort of trying to translate it to a different medium. I don't play the drums. I tried to play boran, but it's hard. So yeah.
I'm sure.
Yep.
That's cool. Anyone else?
Sorry, Richard's distracting me.
Yeah, I was gonna throw it up. You don't have to go to every single stream and post all of. I don't know who's asking you to do this.
He's doing
I
it to
didn't ask
everyone.
you to do this.
I see it as sweet. Okay.
Sure, maybe, or crazy. Like
It's
Yeah, it is the Spider-Man.
Equal parts sweet and crazy.
sweet and crazy. Fair enough. Sums Richard up pretty well. Sweet
Yeah,
and
righty.
bananas. Whoever has the next question, jump in. Oh, any in the chat, by the way. I haven't seen any in the chat yet. Let's throw some questions up in there. Everybody's too distracted by Richard. Richard, knock it off. Hey, what's up, Rachel? Thanks for coming by. Aphrodite Lee just showed up. Welcome. Hello, welcome. I'm going to say Adega.
yeah.
All
Sounds like
right. Nailed it on the first try. All right. Okay, now, when you were writing this, did you know it was a standalone from the jump? Because there are certainly kind of, not necessarily loose ends, but hanging threads that one could follow into other stories. Was that intentional? Did you kind of give yourself a backdoor in case you needed it? Or did you always know it was going to be one and done with this one?
at the beginning, I didn't know my hat from a hole in the ground, let's say. So I don't think I was leaving anything. I was trying not to close doors, I will say. So if things had been a runaway success, I probably would have followed it up with something, right? And I tried while I was finishing these up to leave the door open for the possibility of following it up. So yeah, definitely hanging threads are a good metaphor. But like I said, I was distracted by let's get into serious literature, and just moved on to something else that was sort of closer to my heart, I guess, being historical exclusively rather than a time travel excuse to be historical. Like, no, I'm legit. It's YA. Yeah. And it was very cool when I was watching your discussion, how many points people brought up in Ben's book. And it's like next on my list. So hearing
you're going to like it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be fun.
there
Great
are
minds
there are
think alike.
yeah, there are definite like flavors that you'll find in both for sure. Yeah.
Teenage experience, you're trying to get some of the same things.
Sure, but even the way that like some of the magic is kind of portrayed, or I don't know, like the way that his characters have their powers and yours, and like there's similarities for sure. Plans for more books in the same genre, so not necessarily sequels to this book, but similar tones.
Oh, well, if you want time travel, there's some time travel in the short stories and fabled passages. So like this is sort of historical fantasy in that it has history and it has fantasy. The fabled passages stories, I think most of them are historical fantasy in some way, either alternate universe or time travel or something of that nature. So if you're looking for something similar vibe, I think those might be some fun short stories. I don't have plans to do another time travel YA. My plans at the moment, just for a sneak peek for anybody, I've got a novella that is a prequel to the trilogy series that is like floating along and then it's just on hold. And then I've got a novel about Chicago in 1893. It's sort of like labor history focused, and that is just floating along as well. It's just sort of like stashed, right? They haven't been inspiring. So what I'm pouring myself into now is actually another historical fiction, but focusing on the interplay between talking about groups that are in competition against oppressors, Scots peasants and the Irish peasants around 1880, when there was like all this land agitation for land reform. And you've got like the echo, the legacy of the potato famine affecting people, but like looking askance at each other because of religious differences, etc. So that is really exciting me right now. Where are my nerd glasses? Like that is the thing.
I feel attacked.
Yes.
You mentioned that you like traveling to these specific places to do research, to experience, to get a feel for the setting. So I'm assuming that you travel everywhere for Dulce's Legacy. Do you do that in advance, knowing that you'll write a story about it, or are you just like on vacation in Scotland or on vacation in Nova Scotia or whatever, and then you're like, well, this is a beautiful place, I need to write a story about this? Or do you choose your vacations based on where you want to write?
When I have done that, it hasn't worked out. So I've been on I think 4 separate trips to Scotland, and the last one, no, the third one, I went to Islay, which is known throughout the world for its whiskey, and I definitely tried some of the whiskey there. Can recommend. But I went trying to see 2 places where I could possibly set the next story, and neither of them worked out. So I was like, the details aren't fitting. I couldn't change historical events.
Vacation right there.
Right? Like, so, it's fun to explore and gather details, take pictures, get a sense for some things, but not.
We changed up the music.
I noticed that the first track died away and I hadn't put on another track, so I just put another one on. I didn't mean to throw anybody off.
I was like, does someone have a tab open somewhere?
Right, that's what it sounded like. We're on the watch as professionals.
I appreciate everybody being on their toes.
But no, it's Murphy's Law. When you do something exclusively to try to gain knowledge for a story, the story doesn't exactly fit the details, and so you have to twist it to agree with history, because one of the things about historical fiction is you don't want people calling you out in terms of well, that actually didn't happen, and have people angry and writing letters, because that's
when you have to remind them the fiction part of historical fiction.
True. And I felt like putting in the date when electricity reached, or telegraphs reached a certain part of the island 40 years earlier was like too much. So that would like pierce the veil of suspension of disbelief too much.
I suppose.
I admittedly haven't done the research, but was there an actual story about a child being murdered?
Well, that's kind of like what my question was. Like, did anything get inspired by that like area or anything? But
Nope, just the conflict of the different populations and how that might have played out in a specific time period when they were.
I mean, the way you wrote it makes it feel like it's absolutely believable, and that it
Yeah.
really did happen.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
kudos to
I
you.
agree.
Oh, well, good. Yeah, that 18th century man. Whew, doozy. Oh, hey JD. Thanks for coming by.
Oh, right on. Yeah, none.
I would want to know
Why in the house?
with Finn. So there was kind of like this romance built with her in the beginning, but then it did kind of at the end. It felt like it was just because of their connection. Is that something you had planned from the beginning?
What do you mean because of their connection?
So like her connection between him and I can't remember the other dude's name, Marone's brother,
Jesse?
yeah. So like I don't know why. Like he doesn't stick in my mind. So I don't like still the romance between her and him doesn't make sense to me. So, but did you
know
have
why he's called Jesse? Because he recalls Uncle Jesse in Full House.
Oh,
Was it a placeholder name that stuck?
I guess. Yeah. I'm just
Did
like
you
that
always-
doesn't get back to me now. So yeah. Anyway, yes.
did you always know that she was going to go to Jesse, like the romance was going to be with him instead of with Finn? Or I mean, how did you think of developing that? Did you know everything up front or? Yes.
So I am a discovery writer, and I think I might have started out with like Finn's going to be the one, but it turned into no, he needs to be connected to her because she's the linchpin of connecting the groups to resolve the historic wrong, right? So that's he served his function. Yeah. So I didn't know that going in. But then, one guy, it's like Rhysand and Tamlin. You go in thinking one's gonna be a guy, and then it's just flipped on its head, and you're like, all right, well, this is good too.
Being that you're a discovery writer. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I said that's an ACOTAR reference for anyone who didn't pick that up.
As a discovery writer, what's your editing process like? Because if the first draft truly is telling yourself the story, I imagine there has to be a lot of work in that second edit.
Yes. So it's actually been one on, one off for me. So Memories Hostage, I did myself. I actually didn't have an editor. I just had beta readers who were helping me with like spelling and grammar. And that sort of rolled out over a year, was fine. Dulce's Legacy, like I said, I did have an outside editor, and she's like, you need to redo like 2/3 of this. And I was like, okay. The Keening, which is the first in the trilogy, came out, had an editor, pretty same story throughout. The second one, The Grasping Root, again, turned upside down by the editor, and I had to do a lot of work on it. And so it's kind of been this weird, like, do I know what I'm doing? No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Like, every new book is a new experience. Like every book is different, as you guys know. And so when you do a new thing, you're like, okay, what traps and whatever, like pratfalls are awaiting me in this experience. I can't wait to find out, like you kind of have to go in half blind. So, yep.
Right on. Ben, any other questions for Margaret? I know you have to leave by 5, so if you have anything you really got to get out, you should probably do so.
I'm good. You answered my tough hitting questions.
Mine too. I'm trying to see if I can come up with any more.
Yeah, same here. She breezes right through them. She knows her stuff. Anybody in the chat with any questions still left over for Margaret Pinard, please throw them in there. I am about to throw the chat a question of their own to answer.
Do you know how to play the drum that's in this?
Hold on, nope. I love listening to it, as I love listening to the Celtic fiddles too, but I do not possess the talent. Oh, JD with a question.
Hit it. Let's see. Boom. Do you think it's easier to spot common mistakes now, or is it harder?
Common mistakes. Do you mean grammar spelling, or do you mean like plot holes or things that are hanging? Because those are sort of bigger. Common mistakes. So when I'm writing, in case anyone doesn't know, I didn't announce this at the beginning. I'm doing a project for April. It's Camp NaNoWriMo My Way. I'm doing short story scenes. So I said I'm on a research jag for this Scots-Irish story, right? And I'm in like 6 books at once. as per my usual. And I've pulled prompts from those books of like moments in history. This is how the trilogy started. Moments in history that feel like they've got some juice, right? Like some juice to run on. And so every day I'm doing a short story scene just to see if like, is this the one to run with? And then I'm making a short. So at long last, after Shannon's stellar example of doing shorts, I'm like dipping my toe in and doing one a day for April, just to see how it goes. And those are helping me see, okay, this is the type of thing on one level. This is the type of thing that really excites me, that will keep me occupied throughout a whole novel. I like this. Now, how can I relate these other scenes in? Or how can I stretch this 1846 timeline to this 1880 timeline? How can I get them together, you know? And at the same time, on the other level of like, oh, I do this thing a lot. Subject, verb, comma, gerund. Like, stop doing that. Stop doing that. So I do see like my ticks more easily, but I'm like, whatever, it's first draft. Get it out. So, yeah.
Do you think you'll ever expand on those short stories?
Yes, I'm hoping that enough of them sort of converge and like they can form the nucleus of the next novel. So this is what I'm very excited about. But I don't want to, I mean, I'm making it a project. I'm making it an April challenge. I'm putting out the shorts for like flat lays because someone discovered that they have a camera holder on their ring light after 2 years. But yeah, I don't want to talk about the moments necessarily in public because I feel like that takes some of the magic out of it. So like I'm texting with some people about cool things that I found, but not like publicly on my channel. Not yet.
Right on.
Ooh, thank you, Aphrodite. I am amazing.
I was going to throw that one up next, but you got to it first. Well,
British Empire atrocity. What did you pick? Okay, so this relates to one of the stories that I was gonna, or questions I was gonna bring.
She has an answer to this question.
Yes. What was the last link that someone sent you that made you smile? Okay, so think about this. If someone has sent you a meme recently that you want to share with the class, my brother, he does not follow any of my, he lives in Japan. He has a second kid on the way. He's got stuff going. He does not watch my channel. He doesn't know what I write. The last 10 years are like a blip to him. So he sends me this group that's an Irish hip hop duo from Limerick. They're called the Rubber Bandits. They made a song in 2010 called Horse Outside. It's hilarious. So, you know, maybe it'll be something about the Easter Rising, since we're coming up on Easter, and how the British Army just took out the people trying to declare equality for all on Easter Sunday in 1916, Richard. Maybe. They're fun. The music video, Horse Outside, super fun.
Horse Outside?
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, that's ringing a bell. I feel like somebody has shown me them before.
Really? It's old. I mean, I 2010, so.
Was your life changed when you found out about the M dash?
Probably in ways I don't know. I used it extensively in the Half Human Heroes collection, and I just had to tell Jeremy those double dashes are supposed to convert to an M dash. Sorry, editor.
And what genre do you love reading but cannot see yourself writing?
I've been trying to like get around to a romance idea, but I can't find any that like feel solid enough. Like there's obviously tropes to follow in romance, and I love reading romance, but like I can't land on one that I think I would do well or like originally. So that is a great question, Aphrodite. Maybe someday, but I can't do it yet. I haven't landed on it yet.
I thought you would say romance too. I just thought that would be your answer.
Guessed correctly.
All right. Well, any last minute questions? Throw them in now because it feels like we're naturally winding down. Margaret, was there anything you wanted to cover today that we didn't cover? I know you came prepared.
Yeah, I'm going to start dropping my links.
Do that.
Just in case there's people on any of the number of
JD
streaming to.
Do you have a wrench on my channel? Let me see if I can find you.
Yeah, I don't have a wrench either.
Oh, you're gonna drop
Somebody's
it in
asking
the
what's the
private
process
chat.
for landing on a cover.
Yeah, JD put up a here, can I do it? I can hit it.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
There's so much power here.
I know, it's so weird, right? So my process. So I went with different people. So Memories Hostage. I'm like surfing the internet to find the image that sort of will go right first time. Now Dulcie's Legacy, same thing, different designer. And then when the Keening hit, I landed on the cover collection and have stuck with them for the last 4. So basically I trawl and I trawl and I trawl their archives of like pre-made covers because they're the most affordable. And then I say, okay, can you do this or this or this? And often I'll have like 5 on deck to maybe work. And then maybe I'll like alter the story to make it fit. I don't know. I don't know that I've done that. But there's lots of less obvious covers. I mean, I think this is pretty not obvious. It's very sort of take what you will from it. You know, this is sort of a trope for historical fiction that you have a woman turned away looking at a landscape. And, you know, that's the best I could find for Stormwreck and Spindrift. That one took a long time. And I was like, meh, it's fine. But I don't know if I need to redo the covers, and I'm like psyching myself up to do that. And I don't know whether I'm going to go to the same people. I don't know whether it's going to be like a step up in the price point. It's going to be a step up in price anyway, because they're going to be all at once instead of like $150 a pop. So yeah, I don't know what my approach to that will be. It's been on the back burner, as Shannon can tell you, for a while, because she suggested this like a year ago. And yeah, you know, just in terms of priority, it hasn't been there, but definitely like things are, I don't know, swimming around in there. Oh, we got recommendations. That's for fantasy. I mean, historical fiction might be a real different look, but yeah, you got to go with your genre's sort of, you know, not expectations, but sort of like guide rails, I guess, sometimes.
And it definitely does. It looks fantasy. I'm looking at it right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated by the idea of like falling in love with a cover and then writing a story for it. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know lots of people that do this. Katie Solitis and J.E. Taylor. J.E. Taylor has like 50 to 100 covers that she's bought that she doesn't have, that she thinks of a story for, like, you know, a 1-sentence synopsis, and then we'll be like, okay, I'll get to that later.
DL Tillery does that too. DL Tillery, she does that too. She mentioned that during our interview with her.
Crazy. I couldn't do that.
I was going to say, it takes me way too long just to come up with an idea for a cover that I couldn't work the other way around.
Yeah. We just work differently. Yeah. Makes sense to me. You got loads of great recommendations. That's very cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I threw mine in there as well. I'm sure folks have heard. I have a cover.
Oh, and did I put the Twitter link in for Berna? So if you guys are author tubers and don't know about the booktube community, there's a wonderful booktuber called Berna's Bookish Adventures. She is Turkish. She does her reviews in English. And she's doing a read-along of my trilogy. So if you liked hearing about Dulcie's Legacy and like think the writing is up to snuff, you might want to go into the historical fiction trilogy and read along with other people on YouTube. So I popped that up in the chat at 42 minutes after the hour, in case Adrian wants to pop that up. And she's just like helping people congregate and talk about things as a similar like book club convener, and she's such a sweetheart. So if anyone wants to join and want to read along with other people, there is the link for video.
Very cool.
Yeah, just wanted to shout her out.
All right. Okay. Well, if there are no last minute questions in the chat, I think that's gonna wrap us up for today. What do you guys think? Feeling pretty good about it? It was a good episode.
Your first young adult novel.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. I
Right?
mean, we're of an age, right? I'm going to be 42 in a couple weeks.
You see these grays? What did
Yeah,
these tell you?
I'm starting to see them too. So there was no YA. I was reflecting on this recently. There was no YA when we were growing up, right?
I mean, not Not really.
Isn't
No,
Dragonlance-
category race.
Dragonlance is, well, it wasn't a category, but
It wasn't a category. Like that category didn't exist.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yes. Fact, Richard.
I'm
I
coming
can duck
up
out for
for
an
the
hour and then I
secret of
gotta
the
go back.
universe, Richard. Watch out.
I'm gonna guess what? Cocoa butter? Lots of cocoa butter.
Clean living.
Moisturize.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my
All
god.
right, now Richard, this is the second time that you threw up what incarnation. Are you the British Yosemite Sam? Because that does explain a lot. Like I think
It does. It does.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
That's fun. That's fun.
All right, y'all. Let's go ahead and start bowing out. Miss Margaret Pinard, say your goodbyes to everybody at home and tell them where to find your stuff.
Speaking of which, I had this behind me the whole time. This is a prop from Dulce's Legacies book launch, and I forgot to mention it. Anyway, I had to Google this and how to find it. So that's still there, making me happy. Thank you, everyone, for coming and watching Books by Adrian's channel or wherever else you found me on the interwebs. My name is Margaret Pinard. I've got a YouTube channel I would love you to subscribe to. I've got 5 books and a short story collection out for your reading pleasure. I am trying to get another novel out, so stay tuned for what's coming. I also have a Patreon where I do a book club and book mail. I just mailed out my Patreon postcards yesterday, which is super fun. So, yeah, indie authors, indie bookstores, that's the vibe. And subscribe if you like that too.
Right on, right on. Ben, you are next up, brother. Let people know who you are and what you got going on.
I am Ben Pick. Every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I post videos with questionable writing advice through writing metaphors or whatever I feel like talking about that week. Thank you, Shannon. I talked about dystopian tropes. I do like that I talk about dystopian tropes. I don't like. This coming Monday will be a live episode where I talk about the quarter since I published my second book. So just a retrospective and the things I've done right, the things I've done wrong. I think I might look up my sales and compare it to the first book and do that whole spiel conversation, whatever. That's all I got. Sorry. I'm also with I'm on another podcast with Shannon, the self-publishing tips and tricks. It's me, her, and Morgan as we interview various other people within the self-publishing industry. So we're expanding out from just self-published authors, which we did previous seasons. Now we're interviewing people with marketing. We're coming up with we're going to shortly record an interview with Plotter. So that's a little spoiler because that'll be coming up. It'll be published much later. And then I don't think I'll be able to be there this month, but I'm also on Nia the Vixen of Fiction's channel where we do scripting the book, which is we read the book and then we watch the movie, the TV series, whatever. This month it is Bullet Train. I don't think I'll be there for that, but I will be there next month. I think it's like the third Sunday for Crazy Rich Asians. So I actually remember to promote my other streams.
Your other shows? Yeah, I was just gonna say you have so many going on that you forget most of them most of the time. Sorry, Shannon, your turn to do the same.
What? Forget them?
No.
Ouch.
Sorry. I'm Shannon, writing on the pen name of S.E. Houston, author of the Clash of Goddesses series. I have a YouTube channel under the same name of S.E. Houston, where I mostly do a lot of sprinting right now, writing sprints, productivity sprints. I'm doing one every day in April. And occasionally I publish some videos. My last one was on ChatGPT and playing around with it. I do have some more stuff that's filmed for ChatGPT, but I don't have time to edit those videos. So I don't know when anything's coming. Yeah. And one half of the AuthorTube Writing Conference Duo, which will be coming in June. There's going to be a live coming out this Friday. I don't remember what time we settled on. I can't remember. So
afternoon.
The information is out there.
I was say Margaret maybe knows, but she don't remember. She said afternoon. So yeah. I'd have to go back and look at it again because I don't remember what we. I know it's somewhere around the time
1 p.m. Central.
1 p.m. Central. Okay. So we're gonna do 1 p.m. Central, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 a.m. Pacific for all those different time zones. And
it's so funny. Like just like people are on the internet, they know how to navigate. Just they'll figure it out. No,
If
not
there's
at
anything
all.
we've learned this week is that we're
Have
terrible at
you
time
seen some of
zones.
these
Yeah.
people, Adrian?
And then, of course, on April 15th, we'll have our off-season episode coming out for the self-publishing tips and tricks. That's myself. Ben was the one who picked the book for us to read, so he is our host. And so myself, Ben, Natalie Locke, and
Martin.
Martin Lejeune. And we were all discussing the book. So,
Nice.
And that was a perfect example of bad time zone conversions. So
yes,
we had some issues in the recording of that.
because
Martin's
Natalie
gonna
thought
be
it was
mad
an
that he's
hour
the one who
later,
forgot.
right? Natalie said she thought it was an hour later, or she wrote down the Central Time as the Eastern Time. So then she thought it was an hour later. And
Martin
then-
was just
yeah, Martin was, I don't know what happened with it. Ben and I were like, well, I guess it'll just be us talking about the book.
Fantastic.
But it turned out good. Everyone showed up, so it was good. Yeah, it was a great conversation too.
I need to check that one out. I missed that one.
What
it's
you
not,
need
it's not out yet.
Yeah, so it comes out April 15th.
Oh, right. You said you hadn't edited it yet. Okay, cool.
What
All
you
right.
need is a pocket version. So like people did this for Outlander. They had a pocket Jamie. You'd print out a photo of them and put it on a popsicle stick and hey, look, they're in the stream.
Huh.
That sounds like something Richard would do. He would
Lo-fi.
he would
Yes.
laminate it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I don't. Yeah, he would put it in one of those laminating folders. Yeah.
Yeah. With the little holes.
Holes,
sticking at
yep.
the top. Love you, Richard. All right. To everybody in the chat, thank you so much for coming out. I have been one of your hosts, Adrian Santiago. I write the Mythic series, and the first book, Shadow of the Spark, comes out the 30th of April. You can read the prologue, thank you, which is a short story lead into the main novel. It is called The Death and Rebirth of Bella Erdman. It is available on ebook and in print. I'm actually surprised by how many people have purchased this in print, so thank you very much for those of you who have. I am very pleasantly surprised with that. It also includes 3 sample chapters from the upcoming novel, so check it out. It'll make you salivate for more story and hopefully force you to buy a copy when it comes out. That's going to be awesome. All right, y'all. Subscribe to all the channels. Hit all the likes. Help everybody out, and keep your eyes open for Mythic Shadow of the Spark. To all my co-hosts, thank you very much for joining me. Margaret, thank you very much for coming. It was wonderful talking to you and asking you so many questions. Right on, writers.
The next
We are
book.
out.
You already said we're doing your book next.
We are doing my book next. Oh, thank you very much. We're taking April off in general. So we're back in May, second week of May, with the first, third of Mythic Shadow of the Spark? The first third of Mythic Shadow of the Spark. I'll share all the particulars in the Facebook group, and I'll send out mass emails for those of you who are not on the Facebook group. All right. Does that cover everything?
Good to go.
Okay. Oh, Richard is that? No, Richard is right. He's asking a question. Wait, it wasn't a poll. There wasn't a poll. It was just yeah, you weirdo. It was a question. Why did you throw me off, Richard? Now we're ending on a weird note. All right.
Go
Bye,
buy
y'all.
Adrian's book for the next one.
Yeah, there you
Bye,
go.
everybody.
Later, y'all.